All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this Lake Mill City Council meeting to order on February 1st, 2022. Misty, can you give this roll call? Or
Ms. Curler?
Here.
Mr. Waters?
here?
Mrs. Bishop?
Here.
Ms. Quidnow?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Thank you.
Can we turn her up? Is that possible?
Yeah, Dave, can we turn Misty's mic up a little bit there so we can hear it better up front here? All right.
We got the thumbs up.
If everyone can stand, please join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next on our list is correction and or approval of City Council minutes of January 18, 2022 and City Council work session minutes of January 20th, 2022. Any comment or corrections from anyone? All right. Can't recall. Do I get motions on this? Yeah. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Fields, second by Mrs. Quidnow. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, so correspondence, community correspondence over the last couple of weeks. Ms. Curler?
I received 5 contacts regarding the Sandy Beach boat lifts. All were opposed to the resolution that's before us tonight.
Mr. Fields?
I received the same, probably the same 5, but I received 5 calls and emails also from individuals, and also a couple of calls on the EMS agenda item.
All right. I also had boat lift removal conversations and emails, and also had a snow plowing memo, a positive snow plowing memo about appreciation on how well the snow plow drivers are doing. So so that was nice. Ms. Quidnow?
I also had the boat lift emails and phone calls. I had a few more toward the negative than the positive, so that's to be considered. I also received some questions about Commons Parks improvement, and there was some correspondence regarding us meeting the needs of kids in the downtown area. So that was it.
Mrs. Bishop?
Yes, I also received the email about the plowman who apparently did a really good job in a difficult spot, so kudos to him. I don't know who it was. And multiple emails and phone calls in objection to removing the boat lifts.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move into question and public comment. There is no public hearing tonight, so let me read my little spiel. And I thank everyone for coming tonight. This is by far the largest meeting we've had since I've been a council member, which is almost a year. So thank you. So the public's encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. Public comments may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda. If you've registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called, you can do that if you've registered with the clerk before the meeting was called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and filling out the sign-in sheet provided. All right, I'm going to grab the sheet and I'll invite people to talk. And we can just go in random order. unless it stalls out, and then I'll start calling people up, all right?
I think he should take the sheet. Mr. Waters?
Yep.
We need to have a sheet up there for them to sign in if they have not already.
Okay,
So you might want to leave it there.
let me make sure. Hang on here.
There's another one up there, Neil.
Yeah, there's multiple.
Okay.
Then we're good.
All
Then we're
right,
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
So it sounds like you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Neil Shade.
Is there a mic? Is the
green light on?
Green light on the mic?
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes. My name is Neil Shade, and I live at 516 College Street. I want to begin by saying that I am not for or against the 25 city-managed boat slips. I actually hope that I can have one someday. I am, however, against the rules, regulations, and policies that are not defined and consequently open to wide interpretation. On May 17th of 2020, I requested that the current waiting list method and associated boat slip documentation be reviewed and discussed in an open forum as to its validity, completeness, and fairness to all. I explained the current document named Criteria for Boat Lift Rental, Sandy Beach, City of Lake Mills, dated May of 2011, was not adequately worded to provide for the unbiased governance of the 25 boat slips. Rather than give you a large list of why it is inadequate, I'll give you one clear example. What is the definition of reside? The criteria says a resident must reside at a residential property in the city from April 15th through September 15th. Does that mean you have to be here every day? Does that mean you just show a piece of mail with your name on it? Can I leave during the week and be here just on the weekends? The list goes on. In fact, when I called the city twice today to ask about adding names to the boat list, I was also given two different answers. When the city decides to manage a resource, it must by law have in place a clear and concise plan for the management of that resource. The plan must document how the resource is to be allocated, maintained, and must be available for its citizens to view when requested. This is called the duty to maintain. Simply put, the current documents do not meet that threshold. Over the past 21 months, I have worked to get the documents addressed by actively attending council meetings and park meetings. As of today, nothing has changed regarding the documentation. The decision that the Parks Board forwarded today to remove the boat slips altogether is a net result of working through the task of correcting the documentation, as well as coming up with ways to address the unfairness in the boat slip allocation process. Input from all affected parties was considered, including current lessees of the boat slips, city officials, and citizens who love the lake. The entire Parks Board agrees that awarding a boat slip for life is unfair. The decision was made to send the memo from the Director of Building and Ground to the City Manager and have the council representative on the Parks Board, Michelle Quednow, provide all the detail for any questions that the council will ask. All the discussion and hours of effort documented by the Parks Board were spent to hear every side of the issue, and Michelle is more than capable to answer any questions. We have a priceless resource that 25 individuals will enjoy for the rest of their lives. Further, only 9 of those individuals have a Lake Mills address. I still believe this is a great inequity and a missed opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Doug Applequist. I'm at 2B Paradise Drive. And I too will talk about 9C, the removal of the boat lifts. Obviously, it's a sensitive subject. And a couple of things. I just learned of this a couple days ago. And The question I had was why? I wasn't privy to any previous knowledge or information that was going on. So I started investigating it a little bit further, and says, is it a financial reason? And upon investigating that, I looked at it, and it's like, well, over 20% of the revenue that the parks collects comes from the boat lifts. It's got a 104% return on your investment. I mean, shoot, if we were in a boardroom, we'd probably be talking about how do we put more boat lifts in the water. But we're not. But I get the sensitivity, and I realize it's not a financial decision. It's obviously a fairness and equality decision. And, you know, I would ask, you know, is it fair if somebody, you know, we know the boat lifts are kind of like buying and getting Packers season tickets. It's a long list, and I understand, you know, the frustration. But there's many of us that have waited 10 and 15 years for a boat lift. To have it all of a sudden taken away, is that fair? I looked at some of the ratios, and I said right now it looks like 60% of the Sandy Beach trailer members have leases, 40% of the city. Should that be a 50-50 ratio? If that's what we're talking about, maybe we have two waiting lists. Maybe we have a Sandy Beach trailer resident waiting list, a city resident waiting list. And, you know, when a boat lift becomes available, we choose off of that city list and we get that ratio down to that 50%. I also heard that potentially we were going to look at a lottery. That would be extremely difficult and just not feasible from a boater standpoint. Some of these lifts have boards put on there to accommodate the pontoon boats. Some of the owners will put canopies up to protect their investment. Others have electric winches on them. What happens if you have a boat lift one year and you don't have a boat lift the next year? What do you do with that equipment? What do you do with your boat if you are used to parking it on a boat lift and all of a sudden you don't have that to do? We got to find a place to park the boats. So I think that would be extremely difficult to implement. And finally, if you remove the boat lifts, if you decide later on to put the boat lifts in the water, does now the DNR get involved? Do we have a whole new set of circumstances to have to deal with? So respectfully, I just ask that you consider some of these questions before you make your final decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shane Mullen, 145 Franklin Street. Here to speak on the same topic, item 9C, regarding the removal of seasonal boat lift rentals from Sandy Beach. As you can see by the memo that you have from Eric Schreiner, the boat lift rentals are profitable to the city, which that money is then either used for other programs or reduces property taxes. I can tell you from firsthand experience, boat lifts bring additional passengers to the city. We have passengers that come from out of town. They spend money in town. It's good for the local economy and the local businesses. Boat lifts lower the amount of people using the Sandy Beach boat launch. If you've been down there, it's a new boat launch. It's beautiful, but there is very limited trailer parking. If you didn't have the 25 lifts, imagine 25 more trailers trying to park down there. It's not going to work very well. And if the city decides not to rent boat lifts, what are they going to do with the equipment? You know, it doesn't make sense to sell income-producing equipment. Keeping the boat lifts in place is, you know, obviously the correct decision, in my opinion, especially when you consider all the benefits I just mentioned. Also, in my opinion, the only reason this is being discussed tonight is there's some individuals that do not want to wait on the waiting list. I've been there, I've done that. I know what they're talking about. The city's current practice of using a waiting list, in my opinion, is very fair. It does not need to be changed. It was fair 20-some years ago when we went on the list, and it's still fair today, in my opinion. The waiting list system uses the same process that owners of houses, apartments, storage units use. You know, if they're full and someone is interested, that person goes on the waiting list until the current person renting it gives it up. That's how it works, so to say. It's a common practice, it's logical, it's simple to manage, it's cost effective, and it's fair. There's no politics involved in that process. It's very unbiased, and the person's financial status is not a factor at all. I also feel it's important to educate everyone on potential expenses, as mentioned previously here. When you get a lift, you may not even have a boat yet. You may be a person that has no interest in trailering a boat, so you wait until you get your lift to buy a boat. Or you already have a boat, and maybe it's one that trailers really easily, and now you get a lift, and now there's a chance to upgrade to a bigger boat. That was our scenario. We had a little runabout boat. Once we got the lift, that was 16-footer, I think, easy to trailer. Once we got the lift, we upgraded to a 24-foot pontoon boat. More expensive. And then also, when you get the boat, as the gentleman mentioned, you then have to modify the lift. The way the city provides it, if you have like a V-hull boat, go right on and off. But if you have a pontoon boat, you have to either buy the equipment, or in my case, I had Bob's Metalworks here in town make the equipment for me to modify it so that it works for a pontoon. Covering it. There's no canopy provided by the city. If you want to keep the bird droppings off, you need to buy your own canopy and then the vinyl cover that goes with it. And as he mentioned, the lift, it's a crank lift, which I'm fine with for a few more years. But if you want to motorize that, that's on your dime. If you're upgrading boats, buying a new boat for the first time, putting this, you can spend $20,000 easily once you obtain the lift. So I think it would be very impractical to not rent to the same tenant year after year after year once they've invested all this money into it after they obtain the lift. I certainly hope you vote against the motion. And, I guess in my opinion too, if the people that are complaining about the waiting list were at the top of the list right now, they wouldn't be complaining. And to me, that tells me it's a fair process. That there's people that dislike it, and there's people that like it. And you look around at, like you mentioned, the Green Bay Packers and owners of rental properties, it's the common system. It works. It's proven it works. And it's also proven to be very fair. Be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Johnson, and I live at 224 Louise Street here in Lake Mills. Been a resident here since 2001. In 2003, I bought my boat, and that's when I went on the waiting list for the boat launch or for the boat lifts. And like everyone else, I waited my turn. I think it was 17 years that I waited. I was 39 when I bought that, and I'm getting older. So to me, the lift provides me the opportunity to go to the lake, enjoy the lake. I'm not at the same place I was in my life to pull a 2,000-pound boat out of the water every time I go. My wife isn't in that place either. So I really appreciate the boat lift, but I pay every year, and I think that some of the people that are upset that those of us do have boat lifts, we all waited. 17 years in my case, Shane probably about the same. And we do pay our dues every year. We pay them on time, and we do have to modify. I had to modify mine last year because the lake level was so low. I literally had to modify the bottom so I could get my boat into the water off the lift. And even then, the water was so shallow, I had to push it out so I didn't burn out my motor. That's not me. I can take that. Solutions. I think we should keep the lifts. I think that they are bringing income into this community. They're an item that I don't think wears out that much. Every lift that I've been on, I think we've been on 2 different ones now. They're old, but they work. So I think we should hang on to them. What I think we should modify maybe, or what we should look at, is how many residents are on that list and how many non-residents are on that list, because right now it doesn't seem equitable. There's quite a few people from Illinois that have those lifts, more power to them, but it shouldn't be that out of balance. And maybe ask those people who do have their boats registered in a different state to pay a higher fee. And maybe that will be the incentive for them to say, maybe it's not worth having this lift, and that'll open it up for some of the residents to enjoy that same privilege. But for those who are waiting, who don't like waiting, it's one of those things you just have to do. And once you get it, it's pretty sweet, and I hope it doesn't go away. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, City Council members. I'm Roberta Zastro, and I live at 342 Hatchery Lane. I plan to comment on the agenda item as well, 9C. Lake Mills has been home to me for over 40 years because my parents fell in love with this community and decided to raise their family here. My husband and I have been homeowners and residents for over 20 years. I live and work in the community, and I'm raising my family here too. Summertime in Lake Mills is like no other. Our beautiful community offers so many ways to enjoy the outdoors. My family, in fact, does not vacation outside of Lake Mills. Instead, we staycation by hosting family, friends, coworkers all season long. We enjoy time on Rock Lake together and choose to spend our money here in our community and local businesses. My husband and I are one of the 9 residents who currently lease a boat lift, as mentioned in the memorandum to the council from Facilities and Grounds Director dated January 27th. A boat lift that we waited our turn on the wait list for over 18 years. I'm trying to understand how we got here. What I do understand is that there have been criticisms of existing policies, but to move to a recommendation to remove boat lifts altogether from Sandy Beach seems harsh and hasty. There have been minimal notice, and it's disappointing to see the minimal effort of the board to outline and present compelling data and reasons for this recommendation. Boat lifts at Sandy Beach have been a service as long as I can remember, as have the wait list and the policies to help keep the process fair and transparent. Wait lists exist all over this state for amenities and services like this. I realize in today's world of instant gratification that 18 years may seem like too long to wait, but each current boat lease lift holder waited their turn and within the current eligibility guidelines. Just last year, local family friends decided to let someone else have the opportunity and took a pass after a 15-year wait because they had alternative access to our lake. I appreciate City Manager Wilkie's comments in his memo to the City Council dated January 27th, and I want to encourage council members, please send this recommendation back to the Parks Board. With the Sandy Beach project still in redevelopment phases, I'm confident that the Parks Board, with the Facilities and Grounds Director, can arrive at a better solution than eliminating boat lifts. Maybe it is time to review the current policy and fees, but please do the research to offer a more comprehensive solution. Encourage the board to hear from others that would offer a broader perspective of this service. Please make a recommendation that is researched, transparent, and fair. Thank you.
Thank you. For those people online, can you mute your mics? We're getting some noise coming over the system.
Hello, Pamela Moen, 145 Franklin Street. I'm speaking today to oppose 9C, the removal of the boat lifts. I've lived in Lake Mills for 25 years in the same home. We raised 3 boys in this community, and when they were very young, we inquired about the procedure to rent a boat lift. We were told to visit the city office, and we added our name to the list, and we waited patiently. After many, many years, in 2018, our notification came that we would be able to rent a city lift. 2 of our boys had become adults. 1 was close to graduation. We took the needed steps to begin our rental that summer, and we're very excited. I am opposed to the removal for the following reasons. One, from my understanding, the boat lift rentals generate revenue for the Parks Department, and this is reliable, stable income. In the past 2 years, as I confirmed our rental, I have inquired about the lift configuration and asked questions about the beach phase development that is still in the works. Those conversations that I've had with various people led me to believe that possibly a few more spots might be added to the boat lift rentals, not eliminated. We followed the rules and the guidelines established and waited many years to acquire a rental spot. As city residents, we respected the system. The city office staff was always forthcoming and honest about the wait. We invested money into the equipment needed for our rental spot, the canopy, the planks, and our boat. For these reasons, and for the lack of explanation kind of behind this agenda item, and for the possible elimination of a profit for the Parks Department, I hope that you will vote against the motion pertaining to the removal of the boat lifts. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Steve Topol, 430 Daylily Court. My wife and I wanted the council to know that the boat lift we rent at Sandy Beach means a lot to us. We got, I've lived in Lake Mills my whole life. After college, we got married, bought a house, stopped down at the city office and put our name on the list. That was in 2000. 2018, we got a call, said, "You're up." We waited our time. One of the things that's really nice about the lift is that my wife, who's an educator, can take the boat out during the week with the kids. She doesn't have to back the trailer in. She doesn't have to in and out and all that type of stuff. So it works really well for her. Having friends come over, she's able to do that during the week. We also had to invest in canopy, so it's another $2,000 for the canopy and the railing system that goes up on top. And we bought, supports that go on the side to help guide the boat in so she can do that on her own. My wife, Jenny, and I understand how priceless the lift is, and we definitely hope that you do not get rid of those. Actually, to me, it sounds like you need to get 25 more. That would take care of a lot of the problem, right? You're already making money. If you can put them in, you take people off the list. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Klipsig. I live at 406 West Madison Street. You'll never guess what topic I want to talk about. My wife bought our home in Lake Mills in 2005. I'm not sure how exactly it happened, but after 15 years, we did manage to get a lift last year. I'd never been on the lake before we had our boat to go out on the slip. It was life-changing for us. We were out on the lake multiple times. We had friends in town, friends out. And I second everything that people have been saying. The investment, it's not something that we would have done absent a lift. We're not the people to trailer in and out, and it's what allowed us to enjoy this amazing resource that this town has. I had very little information coming to this meeting. I just knew it was on the topic, so I'm stunned to find out that there's a consideration to remove them entirely. It's a terrific resource for the city, and I implore you to not do that. I've heard conversations and half conversations and rumors of, well, maybe if we revise the system so that every 2 or 3 years you get kicked off the list and go into a lottery or something like that. If that's part of the consideration, I would strongly recommend, because of the investment, because of the wait, 15 years, and we have our first summer on the lake, that you not get a yo-yo system where people are never sure if they're going to have a chance to be back on the list in the future. So please don't take away the lifts, and if you have to modify the system, don't make it so drastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you're the only one I have left on my list.
Thank you, sir. My name is Hope Osdike. I live at W8357 Cedar Lane in the town of Lake Mills. It's pretty apparent to me that there is a problem in Lake Mills, and the problem is public input. I've written a pretty much poisoned letter to the leader, and I might read some excerpts from that tonight. I object to the improvements that have been suggested for Commons Park, and I think there are other folks in the audience who might look at that too. Commons Park is a pretty special place, and it's the centerpiece of our downtown. The park should remain a green space and an oasis in our park, in our city, a special place to gather for all. A comprehensive plan for parks was developed by the City Council during the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of public comment was solicited, but it was not ever made a public forum. I contend that parks and open spaces are being contrived and designed by people outside of our community who do not reflect the values and the grassroots ideas of our community. There is a local desire to improve facilities, but are we merely succumbing to forces that are outside of us to redesign our parks? Do we really want our parks to be something that a consultant's designed, or do we want it to be a grassroots thing? And I think tonight's public comment is an example of this. I don't think there's been enough input publicly, and I have said this. I delivered a petition to this council 2 years ago with 300 signatures that was asking for more public input on Sandy Beach. Present and past council members have made promises to the community about the further development of all of our parks. To the date, I don't see any policies that have been put forward or any public meetings to offer guidance to you people. I would like to see a review of parking issues at Sandy Beach. I would like to see a review of this idea to abolish all of these boat slips at Sandy Beach. I want you all to know that the 24 slips that are permitted there are permitted by the DNR, and that is an approved thing by the DNR, has nothing to do with the city of Lake Mills. I would like to see you guys include people in the process. To this date, you guys spent over $400,000 to put in a new launch at Sandy Beach. You also spent over $200,000 to do an archaeological study of that site. To this date, none of that information has been brought forward to the public. The Parks Committee has embraced all of these ideas. I, as a citizen, cannot afford the time to go to every single Parks Committee meeting. I will, in the future, attend those meetings, which are on the third Wednesday of every month. I don't think the council is getting that information directly either. I've noticed in the agendas that you are waiting many months for the agendas of the Joint Rock Lake Committee and for the Parks Committee. And I think this is not a good service to the community. The only way to attend or to participate is to attend these meetings, and that is why I'm here tonight. I know that it's a difficult task to manage all the development of these parks. And I agree with the ADA accessibility of this park, the Commons Park. And I understand the challenges that our parks have and what our Facilities Committee is looking at. But I don't understand why we are doing a wholesale redesign of two very important parks. I want to bring out, I wrote this poison pen letter, and it's over the limit to be published.
You're getting over your 3 minutes. Can you wrap her up?
I will.
All
And
right,
I'm sorry, but I think this is such an important issue for you guys to look at. What we have in the center of our community is a piece of history. There are monuments to several different individuals. There's a Black Hawk walk through our Commons Park. I think we need to look at these historic things and look at these things carefully. The only message I want to leave with you tonight is you need to somehow include public input. This is not a good example of public input to what parks design should be. Okay, to leave you on a happy note, I'll only take a minute.
Hurry up.
This is the weekend we celebrate our lake. It's Knickerbocker weekend. Let's look at the history of our lake and look at ourselves and how we use this lake. Obviously, a little piece of the lake is what everyone wants. We have these parks to provide common spaces. Let's celebrate our history and let's do the right thing by including the public at a grassroots level in how we develop our parks. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry I'm over the limit.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the council chambers that would like to speak tonight? Is there anybody online?
Nobody else has registered with me, Mr. Waters.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll close that section. Thank you very much for everyone's comments. It's greatly appreciated, and it's great to hear from everybody. Thank you.
I'm going to leave these schedules of events for Knickerbocker here on the table.
All right, thank you,
And I'm
Hope.
also going to leave a copy of the letter that I wrote to the leader, which is a little bit of a poison to them.
Thank you, Hope.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
All right, moving to the next item, it's City Manager Report. Mr. Wilkie.
I've provided you with several documents that I put under the city manager's report. And I've also provided you 2 memos on information related to requests that I had. One was the wastewater treatment plant, and it goes over 2 topics that were probably discussed. One of them is our that we've been dealing with the DNR since the Public Works Board meeting, and we submitted some information to them on the recalculations that we've done on the 3 options, and they have come back and said that it is likely that they will accept all 3 options. So that, you know, at one point we were wondering if they were going to accept all 3 of them. They have, to allow us to be able to consider all of them. And so we will be able to move forward under those conditions. The other one is that there were some additional questions brought up by the council president that he wanted answered before we brought this to the city council, and so we've been working on those. We will be prepared for the February 15th. Several documents. Is that Hope again? The next item is the EMS. And we got a letter, well, let me back up. There's also a letter I provided from the DNR about the DMV, which is a variance on the discharge requirements. And we have been approved to move forward. We haven't got our final permit, but we have been approved to move forward to be able to be considered for that. If we get that, we're on a longer timeline for being able to complete the wastewater treatment plant. It doesn't change a lot of everything, but it does give us some more time to be able to consider some of the options. But it's still not finalized, and so we need to continue to move forward like we're being required to hit the target deadline of next year. As soon as we know, we'll let you know, but I think that, and you can ask the consultant at the time, but he's basically going to say there's several pieces of major equipment that have to be replaced in the existing site that would have to be done quickly, and when I say quickly, in the next 5 years. And that would mean that you would either, if you did that without considering the other options, you would likely then be pretty much locked into the existing site. So it's something you're going to want to review.
Mr. President, may we ask questions on this topic before we move on to the other ones, or would you like him to go through all first?
Let's let him get through.
Okay.
And then we'll circle back. Does that work? Okay.
The other one is the EMS. I provided a letter and the memo. The letter says that they have terminated our contract with them, given us the 120-day notice. It actually says that they will work until December 31st of 2022. Staff has started to work harder at some of the issues, had a lot of pretty serious conversations about it. The one item, we have been meeting with them. They have given us some more information. We've asked for three separate items, better financials, which we got pretty substantial improvement on the financials. I don't know that they're in the form that I would look for yet. Then we asked for some data on ambulances, times, and some additional financial data. So we're still waiting for that, but I think that we're working on a timeline to have an ambulance service up on January 1st of 23. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
All right, questions? Did you have something, Ms. Curler? All right.
Thanks, Steve. On the wastewater treatment plant, you touched on this briefly, but I just want to make sure that we all understand. So the multi-discharge variance, does that give us flexibility in terms of the phosphorus limit that we have to reach, or does it give us a longer date before we have to be in compliance with that phosphorus or something else? So can you just clarify what if we got that variance, what would it give us?
It would give us a phosphorus variance for a certain period of time.
So we'd have more time before we had to meet the new standard?
Before we had to meet the phosphorus variance.
Okay, which would be potentially more time before we have to make a decision or start choosing one of the options.
Right. There are some other limitations, though, like the replacement of equipment that would have to be done, or the addition of equipment that has to be done. And once you've made that commitment, then you're kind of locked into one of the options.
Okay.
Either one or two. So the debate then becomes, you need to, within the next probably 12 months, stretches it out a little bit for us, but in the next 12 months, you need to know if you're going to select options 2 or 3.
Okay. And then, I guess a question and a comment on the budget report. First of all, it was nice to see the year end, and I really want to thank the department heads that look like they did a really good job in managing within their budgets. On page 3, though, I noted that the planning and engineering services is more than double the budget, and looking back through the clear.gov, it looks like that's been the case for several years. So what are the challenges that we're dealing with in that budget, and is that something that we should be planning differently for, or should be, did something unexpected come up? Can you just tell us a little bit more about that item?
It's not driven by us. It's our response to the public. So anytime someone comes in and requests something, we have to respond. And so it's reviewing zoning permits, it's looking at BSOs, it's looking at CSMs, it's looking at, subdivision plats and those types of things. It's providing direction to the public on certain types of features. So it's
So
not
that's-
really driven by us.
Okay. Is it mostly on the planning and zoning side of things then, as opposed to the engineering, which we have a little more control over? Is
It's
that what you're saying?
mainly the planning and zoning.
Okay.
It's mainly the zoning. But it does have some engineering, but it's pretty minimal. When we look at a BSO, there are, and when I say a BSO, it's building and site operations plans. For most commercial and industrial sites, there's a pretty significant amount of engineering. There's stormwater, there's water, there's electric, and those types of things. So we go through and review all those and make sure that there's comments. So almost every one of the BSOs, you will see a memo from the engineer and a memo from the planner telling us what needs to be complied with to be able to bring that site plan up to city standards.
And so what you're saying, if I can maybe put it a different way with the planning and zoning, it's hard to predict or budget for that because we don't know who's going to come in with a proposal to build a new home or do a subdivision or something like that.
That's correct. Every new home has some level of zoning. So the zoning administrator will look at it. He'll probably take, a lot of times, he'll take 10 or 15 calls before someone submits a building permit. So those all kind of add up.
Customer service and, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Fields?
Steve, I have a few questions. On the EMS letter, are you still actively negotiating with EMS then, at the moment?
I would say yes. I'll tell you what, I'm taking this approach. I don't have time to wait, so I'm going to start putting the plan in place immediately to be able to replace them. But I have given them, have you read their consultant's report?
No.
Okay, they have a new consultant's report. And they have come in with a totally different package that really requires us to move forward with full-time staff. I want to see the model before I make any discussion on that, and that is such a difficult process anyways, that I see it very hard to make it work, but I'm willing to listen. I asked them to provide me with samples of the model. The one that they provided me I don't think is relevant because they already have thousands of full-time staff in comparison to us, who would have to add a significant amount of full-time staff to be able to make this model work. So I'm concerned, and I don't think, we have to have something in place by a certain date, and we're going to make that work. And so I'm going to get much more aggressive in how I approach setting up our own EMS.
Okay, then two other quick follow-ups. Would you be able to provide the, you referenced the 2013 staffing report, if you could send that to us again for review?
I will.
And then
I
also
know all the
EMS
new council members got it recently. Do you want me to send it again? You may not have been in that, Steve, because you were here back before, so I didn't.
I know I've seen it a couple of years ago. It'd be a good refresher to go back and look at it. And then could you also provide the EMS letter to council members here, please?
Yes. Yeah, I'll get that done right away.
Mr. Fields, are you referring to the EMS letter from Mr. Johnson that we received on August 29th, 2021? Or is there a different letter that you're referring to?
The letter that, from this memo about their giving 120-day notice.
Oh, I see. Okay,
It's a recent letter.
That's the recent letter. It should have just been probably this last week.
okay. Thank you.
So let's just go down the line, and I guess it's my turn. On the EMS issue, what time frame are we looking at as far as getting some things in front of council? Because now the clock is ticking.
We may have the first decision on February 15th, but probably most of it's going to start rolling in over the next 12 months. A lot of it's based on being able to provide certain pieces of equipment and other detailed information that I can't necessarily tell you about tonight. We're going to have to put together an operations plan. Todd and the medical director are working on that. And then there are certain pieces of equipment or facilities that we have to be able to verify to be able to even start thinking about the license. And so that'll have to be coming up. So we have to look at how we're going to make that work.
So you think in the next month we'll start getting some of those details then?
I hope so.
Okay. And then on the capital budget report, Sandy Beach stood out as a huge expenditure in 2021. And I know there wasn't any numbers to balance that out in the budget because it was from the previous year, I believe. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Just wanted to get clarity on that and make sure that was the case.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
Michelle, any questions?
Not at this time.
Mrs. Bishop?
Just one point, I share Ms. Curler's concerns about going over budget almost 3 times the original budget amount for planning engineering services. And I understand the concept that it's driven by request and what's being built in that year. But if we know we're continuously going over that budget item, we need to have a real discussion about that when we're doing the budget cycle and adjust for it maybe in other ways, maybe going back and looking at the contract, what is the fee for services per hour, maybe even putting in a point of contact that somebody can reach out to the city first to get their initial questions answered before we're spending money on those outside services. So that's just what I wanted to say to follow up on that point.
Or should there be a city employee doing those responsibilities?
That's a possibility.
I got a laugh over there.
Yeah.
A chuckle.
It's not a,
A well-liked position, as you've said before.
well, there are lots of issues related to it. And it's not a conversation that we haven't had internally. And so I believe that we'll probably have something. I was hoping to wait for the staffing study. I still think there's something that we'll be able to do with the staffing study, but we're starting to look at the numbers and the opportunities and see what's there. Historically, those types of positions turn over about every 18 months. So it's
Right.
just a difficult position to maintain.
Any further questions? All right, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Wilkie. Item 8, Councilmember Board Report and Acceptance of Minutes from the Joint Rock Lake Committee of December 9th, 2021. Planning Commission of October 26th, 2021. Any comment from board members or questions? I have a quick one. On the Planning Commission report, it did mention the Bayberry project. Are we expecting to see that in council here pretty soon?
We are hoping that it will be on the next city council agenda. We didn't, after the first plan, after it was approved at Plan Commission meeting based on some additional documents, those documents weren't provided. We received some early last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, but they were still incomplete. So we've again asked them to provide all the documents required from the Plan Commission meeting, and we've been assured that we'll receive them. So I'm assuming that'll be on the next council agenda.
All right, any further questions? Seeing none, I'll accept these minutes. Moving on to council business. Item A, discussion, decision on executive search request for proposal. That is City Council Motion 22-2-1-1. Misty, can you read that?
City Council Motion 22-2-1-1, determining a process for selecting an executive search recruitment services firm.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve motion 22-2-1-1 regarding the process for selecting an executive search firm.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Curler, second by Mrs. Bishop. Staff, any commentary?
We received 5 proposals. What we tried to do is look at it and say, hey, how much time is it going to take? You're probably looking at an hour per firm. There are probably 3 that are, 3 is generally a good number of firms to get a good feel for what's out there. One of the firms is from Texas. One doesn't have a lot of municipal experience, particularly municipal executive experience. So it drops down to 3 firms that are relatively stable and know the area and have good contacts with the executive field. So based on that, I thought that 3 in the 45-minute interview and then 15 minutes for review should give us plenty of time and plenty of opportunity to discuss, what the issues are and how we'll resolve them. So, unless you have any other specifics you want to know about, we were looking at February 17th at 7 o'clock to do these. Mr. Waters cannot make the meeting. He has said that it's okay to run the meeting without him, but I, didn't know if anybody else felt that it would be better off to have them at the meeting. And look at setting another date.
Do you want to tackle that now, or do you want to do that at the end of the meeting?
We can do that at the end of the meeting.
All right.
If you're good with that.
Yeah.
I feel that this gives us the best option, and there are three very high-quality firms. There's no doubt that we've gotten three of the best firms in Wisconsin.
Yes, Ms. Curler.
A couple questions and a comment. First, I would be in favor of changing the date so that Mr. Waters can attend as our council president, and also someone who's been an executive and hired executive. So I think your experience would be valuable to that process. Steve, I wonder two things. One, should the interviews be held in closed session so that the applicants aren't hearing, the second and third applicants aren't hearing what the first one said, so forth? And also, what do you recommend as far as staff attending? Which staff would you recommend attend along with the council?
Well, you want the city clerk and the city attorney and the city manager. That's pretty much it. That part of the process of being an executive session is up to you. Generally, they're going to be lined up in the outside room, not listening anyway. So whether it's a public meeting or not is not probably as significant. It'd be interesting to hear that. I'm sure people would be interested in hearing the conversation, but that's up to you. Most of when we do RFPs and we do the initial interviews, they're done in with maybe one council member and then staff, and then that way we don't have to be in public. In this case, you would have to be able to find an exemption and go into executive session. I'm sure there's an exemption, but we hadn't discussed that till this point.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's move to a roll call vote on this. City Council Motion 22-2-1-1. Misty?
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Ms. Quednow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Item B is a discussion decision on comprehensive plan update, public involvement plan. This is the City Council Motion 22-2-1-2. Misty, can you read the motion?
City Council Motion 22-2-1-2, approve the public involvement plan for the comprehensive plan update.
All right. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve motion 22-2-1-2 to approve the public involvement plan for the comprehensive plan update.
I second.
All right, motion by Mrs. Bishop, second by Ms. Quidnow. City staff.
The public involvement plan is a pretty significant part of the statutory requirement for the comprehensive plan, and it lays out a lot of things that we have to take into consideration when we do the comprehensive plan and the 11 elements that are considered. So Dustin, you want to discuss it?
I certainly can. Thank you. As Steve said, there are some very specific statutory requirements, and some of the public comment we heard earlier is about engaging the public and getting their feedback on a number of items that are important to the community. The comprehensive plan is a document that you've had on the books for decades now. The last update was done in 2009. It's generally a 20-year plan, and we update them about every 10 years. When we wanted to update this kind of on schedule, we kind of all ran into the pandemic issue, so it got pushed off a little bit. So we're looking at this as still being the 2040 comprehensive plan, which is an update of the previous plan to ensure that decision making is consistent, to make sure that we're highlighting the key issues that are important to the community, that we have kind of achievable goals and objectives within it, and we have a consistent framework for making land use decisions around the community. I'm going to ask you to maybe put on page 3 of the document, which is really outlining the public involvement activities that we are going to engage in. Really, this is to make sure that the public is very aware of how we intend to solicit input, feedback from them. Obviously, Plan Commission meetings, the Plan Commission is really tasked with this item. The Plan Commission meetings are certainly available to the public, and public comment is, of course, encouraged at those meetings, as are other board, commission, and staff meetings. So again, getting input on a variety of issues at those meetings and from those decision-making bodies will be important. The City Council, as you know, obviously takes in public comment. We certainly want to encourage public comment, and comment forms will be made available for issues related to the comprehensive plan. Ultimately, the document will be reviewed and hopefully approved by the City Council as a part of the formal process. There will be an online survey that will be developed and made available to the public. We will also make hard copies available at City Hall or other locations that the city feels is necessary for those that aren't comfortable doing an online version. It's important to also note the online version will be available for smartphones. We will be meeting with key focus groups or personnel from the community. Those are people that will be identified by the Plan Commission and the city staff and input from the council. We want to hear about them on some very specific issues. Those are one-on-one meetings with us as the consultants to hear from them. We try to keep specific personnel issues that may be raised anonymous, but we are trying to gain feedback from them so they do feel the ability to provide really unbiased feedback on issues. There will be a public hearing later in the process on all of this, but we're of course hoping that we get considerable feedback through some of these other mechanisms that we'll be undertaking. In the end, the council does need to approve this by resolution so it can be included as part of the document itself. And all of the materials will be made available online as they are developed, whether that's draft chapters, graphics, or maps that are put together. Everything will certainly be made available on the city's website for the public to download and view and comment on. If there's any questions on the public involvement plan, I can certainly try to answer them.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Ms. Curler.
Thank you, Dustin. I noticed that the Plan Commission in their documents also received a schedule or proposed schedule for when this process would occur, and it looks like it starts already last month and would be completed by the end of the summer. We didn't receive that, so I'm not sure if my other council members are aware of what that proposed timeline was, but to me it seems to be quite fast, and I'm wondering what's the reason for the fast track and what would be the consequences if we waited a few months before starting the process.
If we waited a few months before starting, that is certainly a possibility. We were kind of asked to put together a schedule that would complete the update within a year. It's important to understand there's about 2.5 months of actual adoption process complying with the statutes. So there's a 30-day open book period from when you put a notice in to have a public hearing until you can have the public hearing. And then we have to provide notification to surrounding communities and then a number of other statutory bodies. So we were trying to kind of finish in a 12-month period. When this was brought forward as part of the budget from last year, trying to streamline the process was important. We certainly aren't trying to go so fast that people aren't able to provide input, but a longer process costs more money, takes more time, and costs more money. And we were trying to keep it as streamlined as possible for those efficiencies. There is a number of items that are, I'll say we're sort of triaging the existing document. There's a number of things you've gotten accomplished from it. Obviously, we'll be moving on to other things that get accomplished. There's certain things that still need more scrutiny. So we weren't starting over from scratch. We weren't rewriting every word in this document. So I'd say a fair amount of it is something that has been seen and has been adopted in the past. We were certainly trying to be mindful of staffing turnovers at the department head level, trying to make sure that we were getting feedback from the people who have had a fair amount of institutional knowledge within the community, including the city manager. So I think there was another reasons why the schedule was developed the way it was, but certainly defer to the city manager. It is certainly something that can be reevaluated.
Steve, do you want to add anything else? Or otherwise, I have a comment.
Well, I agree with Dustin. There's a certain amount of institutional knowledge and background that comes along, and if you bring in a brand new person that's not familiar with it, there's going to be a lot of information that can be lost or not incorporated. And so at least to the point, I don't think you'll be finished by the time I'm gone, but you'll be substantially complete.
Okay, thank you. I guess the reason I ask about this, and the item before us is to approve the public involvement plan, and so I want to be clear, I don't have any objection to that. I think it's a good plan. It's more involves more public input than the last time the city did this, so I think that's good. The two things I have concern about are the council's capacity and our staff capacity to spend time on this right now, to start on it here in the month of February, because we are trying to hire a new city manager. We've got to get emergency services in place in our community. We've got the Sandy Beach RFP where we're going to be doing interviews. So we're going to be having a lot of extra meetings to manage those things in the next few months, and our staff are going to be supporting all those efforts. So I'm just a little bit anxious about piling too much on ourselves and on the staff that we can't do it well. And I guess the other thing is a couple of the things that we're doing now in special meetings are updating or reviewing our vision and setting our goals, and I think those goals need to be the foundation for the comprehensive plan. So having said that, I don't know what other people's thoughts are on this, but I would make a motion that we table this until the next meeting and ask our planner to provide us a schedule, and that then we could consider that timetable, maybe amend it, maybe agree to it, but that we could vote on this at the next meeting. So that's my motion.
So there's a motion to table on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So there's a motion by Ms. Curler, a second by Mr. Fields. Is there any discussion on the motion to table?
I would like to add a comment, a little concern, if that's okay. With regard to the comprehensive plan that we are sitting in closed sessions or in sessions to discuss what our vision is, one of the, I'm sorry?
In workshops.
In workshops, I apologize. Thank you for the verbiage. I hesitate in being the one who, or being one of five who declare what the community needs. What I would love to hear from is the community about what they would like. And I feel like the public improvement plan documentation that we have here is, though it may feel hasty, I feel it's an opportunity for us to hear more from people about what they want, before we decide what it is that we want to have through the comprehensive plan. I know, especially with regard to the agenda item that many have had a conversation on today, that it was it was hard to decide or do any kind of decision without having knowledge from people. And I think it's important that we gather as much information as we can before we decide on the direction that we're going to go.
All right, thank you. Any other comment or discussion on the motion to table?
I'm also inclined to vote no on tabling the motion, tabling this motion, for similar concerns that Ms. Quidnow had, and that I do want to consider public input as we discuss the strategic vision, and I also know that there are statutory limits. I mean, we're supposed to do this every 10 years, and we're already behind on that, and so I don't want to fall further behind, and I think it's manageable to do all of these things. We do have Mead and Hunt and Dustin working on this public input, and I don't think city staff would have put it forward if, everybody couldn't handle their piece. So that's why I would be inclined to vote no on tabling this motion and moving forward with public input.
Any other comment? Seeing none. Misty, can we have a roll call on the motion to table? The motion to table City Council Motion 22-2-1-2.
Ms. Quidnow?
No.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Ms. Curler?
Yes.
Mr. Waters?
No.
Mrs. Bishop?
No.
Motion failed 3-2.
All right, thank you. So we are back to discussion on City Council Motion 22-2-1-2, which is the public involvement plan involving the comprehensive plan. Any other discussion on this motion?
I was wondering if if there is an appropriate date of which we will be receiving this information from the public input, so that we can have a better or a clearer idea of a timeline, so we can act appropriately with our comprehensive plan needs as well.
Mr. Wilkie?
Dustin, you want to comment?
I certainly can.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I thought that a schedule had been provided to you, and it certainly is available on the website from the Plan Commission meeting last week. In essence, the front part of the document or the process is reviewing a number of data sources, compiling data sources, so we can show a picture of kind of what's been transpiring in the community over the last 10 or so years compared to what you've seen over the last, say, 20 to 30 years. So we can give, whether it's a resident or decision maker such as yourself or the Plan Commission, kind of a picture as to what's happening demographically in the community. Approval of the public involvement plan is really separate from the schedule. Approval of the public involvement plan really says that you agree that these are the things you're going to do as a part of the comprehensive plan. The schedule would be next month. We were going to have a draft of what we call the issues and opportunities chapter, which is, like I said, reviewing the demographics, gaining an understanding of what's transpired, looking at some of the visioning goals that were from the previous plan, and letting us work with the Plan Commission to engage in the public involvement activities. So we were going to be able to bring forward a draft of the survey, the online survey, to identify the focus groups. So really what happens is, I'll say what we call background portions of the chapters get written or updated. And then with each meeting we have homework for the, in this case, the Plan Commission, to provide feedback on what the old plan says, what are some of the issues that they're facing. You'll recall that you were distributed a questionnaire that went to the city council, to department heads, and to the plan commission, so we can summarize those and we can show where there are what the decision makers think about these issues. We're also, again, wedding that to all of these public involvement or key focus group or key personnel meetings that we want to get scheduled. So the front part of this process is gaining feedback before we start making or recommendations or decisions on kind of the long-term goals and objectives, if that makes sense. So takes a little bit to get rolling, just because we've got to make sure everybody's on the same page, and identifying kind of, this is the how we want to get feedback from the public. The actual items, surveys, meeting with people, et cetera, is the feedback that we're really trying to achieve. So I'm hoping that you would consider approving the public involvement plan, because it really is the first step to really let us get moving. We can certainly kind of revisit schedule with you to talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, it's just conceptual as the end of May that it would be primarily done, but that can be spread out a little bit.
Certainly.
Mr. Wilkie, can that schedule be forwarded to council members' emails?
Yeah.
I know it's in the planning commission agenda, but it'd be nice to just have it sent to us.
Thank you for explaining that, Dustin.
Certainly.
Any other questions? Ms. Curler?
Dustin, could you just clarify? I think you said that the council was sent a questionnaire. Is that right? Or we will be sent a questionnaire?
You were.
It's my understanding you were sent a questionnaire from the clerk.
Is that via mail or email?
Recently?
Email. Probably last week.
I don't believe I've
No.
received
I
it.
think I've received
We
it.
didn't receive that.
Hopefully it's not in spam.
I will double check with the clerk to make sure that is provided to you.
Thank you.
Certainly. And if I have a second, I can certainly try to share the schedule with you briefly. But obviously it is available online. It is from the meeting last week with the
Plan commission.
Plan commission. Yes, I'm sorry. Trying to talk and open a document simultaneously. It's pretty limited in my my capacity. So again, this is not etched in granite, but it does provide an understanding of how kind of chapters are, background chapters, et cetera, are developed in conjunction with public participation. So you can see kind of on the top is really the public participation events. The stars are kind of the key components of getting feedback. So making the survey available when we want to try to meet with key groups that are identified by the community, work sessions. And then you can see at the bottom is the plan adoption. So there's a challenge adoption that can stretch out a little bit. So it does look like it's ending in summer. We can stretch that out a little bit because there's a lot of, I'll say, downtime in the adoption process. So we can certainly revise this if you'd like. We do try to avoid, you get to the holidays, late November, and we try to have public hearings before that because, people get very busy that time of year. So again, we can update this a bit and have a little more discussion on it if you'd like.
Can that document be sent to us, or is that something that can be shared with us, Steve?
Of course.
Perfect.
Just
Oh,
request
I'm
your-
sorry.
Yeah.
I just can't read it.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I tried to share my
That's the
screen
schedule.
with you,
Sorry.
but I don't know what you're seeing on your screen.
We are seeing the schedule.
Yes,
Okay.
it's just
Okay.
projected a ways away.
I gotcha.
And I'm getting old, so
So
I can't see it.
things that I think that should stay the same on the schedule is the initial public involvement, because you try to cluster together so there's, I'll say, a certain level of energy from the public that they know that these things are happening and that they should be involved. Obviously, it needs to be front-loaded so it can provide input to the rest of the chapter discussion. Some of these things that you say, like that are occurring in January and February, issues and opportunities is background chapters, a lot of background things that are happening. But we can certainly kind of readjust, I'll say, slide some of these other items a little bit later and move the kind of formal adoption process to kind of starting after summer, but ending before Thanksgiving, I would say.
Mrs. Bishop, did you have a follow-up question?
No, not a question, just a comment, so my fellow council members know. At our last Plan Commission meeting, we did discuss at least moving some of our meetings up by an hour to meet at 6, so that we can start facilitating some of these additional discussions that we're going to have to do to finish the comprehensive plan. So we have taken that into account at that level.
All right, any other questions or comment? Seeing none, Misty, can we have a roll call vote on City Council Motion 22-2-1-2?
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Ms. Quendow?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dustin. All right, item C on the agenda, discussion decision on removal of seasonal boat lift rental on Sandy Beach Park, at Sandy Beach Park. It's City Council Motion 22-2-1-3. Misty, can you read the motion?
City Council Motion 22-2-1-3, approve Parks Board recommendation to remove all boat lifts from Sandy Beach.
All right, can I have a motion?
I move to adopt motion 22-2-1-3, approve the Parks Board recommendation to remove all boat lifts from Sandy Beach.
Is there a second? Is there a second for motion, City Council Motion 22-2-1-3?
For purposes of opening discussion, I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Ms. Curler. All right, city staff, probably Mr. Schreiner. Are you available to give us some comment on this? Some history?
The boat lifts at Sandy Beach have been there for at least over 20 years. The discussion to potentially change the structure or remove them or any other alternatives was started before I started this position. But since I started this position, it's been a constant issue on Parks Board agendas for the most part until now. In December, the motion was made to remove the boat lifts. From that point, there was going to be fact-finding missions to figure out what the reasoning was going to be behind that. My mission was basically to get the financial aspects of that as well. That was one of the aspects that I didn't have the actual solid data on. Since that point, I've collected the financial aspects of it, and based on my memo right now, without a replacement form of revenue for the Parks Department, I cannot recommend to pull out the boat lifts at Sandy Beach. So if you have any specific questions at all for me, I could absolutely elaborate on them.
There's the law enforcement on the lake. They have their boats down in that area. Where do they use these boat lifts that we're talking about, or do they have some other property down there?
Township has a jet ski that's actually on the sand. It's not a portion of the actual boat lift piers itself, but they also do have a boat that is on the boat lifts as well.
So it's on the city boat lifts?
Correct.
Okay, so if we were to remove these, like the Parks Board's recommending, law enforcement would lose their spot?
If the language is all boat lifts at Sandy Beach, I would say yes.
Okay.
As per the language of the motion.
Mr. Fields?
Can you kind of enlighten me on how we got to the motion here to eliminate the boat lifts? Is it just strictly because it was an issue that's become a nuisance to the Parks Department, that this was kind of the easy button to make the issue go away? Or I guess I'm trying to find a logic to how we have a lot of residents that came up here. They've made substantial investments in these lifts, and some of them only got them 2-3 years ago. How did we get to this point where this showed up on our agenda, I guess?
It was one of the aspects, and if there's Parks Board involvement at all, I would love to have that added if possible. I can speak to the Parks Department and my opinion as well, but any reasoning for the Parks Board, I'll leave up to a Parks Board representative. But it was one of the aspects that could be an option for restructuring or changing down there, with one of the most drastic either being doing nothing to the structure that we have in the boat lifts or removing them. So it'd be one of the, I suppose, most drastic pulls that could happen.
To follow up with what he was saying, to Neil Shade's comment about having been there in many of the Parks Board's meetings, I've only been there for the last 12 months of it, so he's put in another 10 months on top of that. So his patience level is pretty extreme for that. But the point is that it has been discussed. However, in more recent Parks meetings, it's been discussed that we need to have a good idea of what each idea or what plans there are. The current system is, in its own way, unclear by the way that it's written into our policies and procedures. So I will follow up with what Neil said with regard to that there's some lack of consistency in terms of what people know and disseminate in that information. But do we want to get rid of the boat lifts altogether? I don't believe that we do. I think that the Parks Board really wants to gather as much feedback as we can get, and this is an incredible opportunity for us to gather that information and really build from that a good, solid understanding of what would be in everyone's best interest. We recognize that there isn't going to always be, that there is never going to be everyone happy. There are going to be difficult decisions to be made in this way. And we recognize as a board that the policy that's been in place, that has been in place for many, many years, has been working for some and not working for others. And so I think what their intent was to find some ability to find equality or equity, maybe that's the better word, in how this is done. That doesn't mean I feel like we're, as a Parks Board, want to rip them out. What I would love, and what we have gained from this opportunity, is of feedback that I don't think that we would have gotten any other way. So that's where I'm coming from with that. In terms of the history, from what I can gather, I can tell you that we have explored quite a few opportunities, different things that are different systems. We looked at the lottery system. We explored other possibilities in other areas, such as Oconomowoc and how they do their boat lift system. We've explored a variety of different things, but we haven't come to a decision of presenting those different options in a concise way. And so what I would like to do moving forward is, if it's possible for the Parks Board to compile those pieces of information so that we as a council have the opportunity to explore all of that data before we make any decisions that would have such an impact on our community.
So where I come from as well is whether there's change or anything adapted, there just needs to be more research done for Parks Board to present it to council. I need to base my opinion based on the memorandum or the motion that was given to council, with that being to remove all of the boat lifts. So that's what I'm focusing my priorities on, is specifically the motion. If we're looking just at that motion, my recommendation would be to not remove them.
I guess my only concern with this is that it came to us in a motion so hastily without all that information behind it, because this has the potential of affecting a lot of people's lives. So I would just ask the Park Board to really take their time and get all the information before they send something like this to us, because this will send a lot of shockwaves to a lot of people, and that doesn't leave a good taste in our mouth.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Curler?
Mr. Schreiner, question for you. One constituent who contacted me indicated that they, I believe they're a renter at, in the Sandy Beach mobile home community, and they've already received their bill for the season, which includes the boat slip rental. So are there some folks that have already been sort of asked to pay, assuming that the boat slips will be in place this year?
I wouldn't be able to confirm if the letters have went out or not, or what the
Okay,
language is on
okay, all right, I just wanted to check and see, because that would add, to Mr. Fields, your concerns if people are already, have made investments in past years and even have been given some kind of indication that they would be able to continue for this year. I think it would be very problematic if we were to discontinue this without that more information.
Any other questions? I have one more, Mr. Schreiner. The motion did include how much revenue would be given up if we removed the trailers, or the boat lifts, excuse me. But it did not outline what type of parks programs would need to be canceled or how we would go about raising additional revenue to make up for that. It seems like something like that should be included in some motion like this. Do you have any background, or can you give us any ideas of what type of programs would have to be canceled if we did pass this tonight?
I'm not quite sure what they would be, but that's why I would recommend to not remove them out, because I'm currently not at the ability to have a replacement for them. So therefore, as a program, I wouldn't be able to afford to lose the opportunity of the revenue of the boat lifts.
Okay.
We have a lot of non-revenue gaining sources of work that we do, whether it be tree trimming, tree cutting, planting, the actual ice rinks at Sandy Beach. Lawn mowing is one of the most drastic things that we do all the time throughout summer that are non-revenue gaining. So I don't know what could potentially be removed or cut to compensate for it.
I'd hate to lose the ice skating rink. It's so nice
And
to see
I'm not saying
everybody.
I'm just saying there's lots of
Yeah.
aspects to the
Yeah.
Parks Department that are non-revenue gaining. So losing a revenue gaining source of work that we do would be drastic.
Do you have follow-up, Ms. Curler?
I guess I just want to make a comment to our community and to my fellow council members that I appreciate the work that the Parks Board has been doing and recognize that they've been working on this for over a year. We ask our citizen boards to do a lot of tough things, like deciding options on wastewater treatment plants and whether or not to rent boat slips and to who. And I recognize that it's not an easy decision and that they have been grappling with these issues. So I think that I will be voting against this. And the reason is I would like to send it back to the Parks Board and ask them to flesh out the things that they've been researching, look at all the alternatives, choose one, and send that information to us so that we can understand why they're choosing why they're recommending what they're recommending.
Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I'd like to move to roll call vote on City Council Motion 22-2-1-3. Misty?
Ms. Curler,
No.
Mr. Waters,
No.
Mrs. Bishop,
No.
Ms. Quidnow,
No.
Mr. Fields.
No.
Motion failed, 5-0.
All right, thank you. Probably need to work with staff in making some type of recommendation back to the Parks Board on how to move forward with this issue. We can talk about that over the next couple weeks, or maybe even in our work session in the next couple days. So,
Can I be sure to be part of those conversations so that I can better represent?
are you going to be there on Thursday?
Yes, I will be there on Thursday.
All right.
I just don't want to overtake our agendas, items that we have on Thursday because of this.
Did you have something there, Mr. Wilkie?
No.
Okay. All right, let's move forward with item D. Discussion decision on development agreement for Tyranena Properties, 203 North Main Street, LLC. This has a City Council Motion 22-2-1-4. Misty, can you read the motion?
City Council Motion 22-2-1-4, authorizing the city manager to execute a development agreement with Tyranena Properties 203 North Main Street LLC for the redevelopment of 203 North Main Street.
And before I ask for a motion, I did want to thank everybody for coming tonight to voice their opinion on that last issue about the boat lifts. So I thank you for all the great feedback and appreciate having the community involved in the process. So thank you for coming tonight. All right, thank you. Can I get a motion for City Council Motion 22-2-1-4?
I will move approval of motion 22-2-1-4, authorizing the city manager to execute a development agreement with Tyranena Properties, 203 North Main LLC.
A second.
Motion by Ms. Curler, second by Ms. Quidnow. City staff, any comment on this?
This is our first project in TID number 8, which is the downtown area. It's a pretty significant project that I think will benefit the downtown a lot. Dan Drescher worked on this pretty hard with the developer, and so I'm going to let him make all the initial comments, and then we'll see what questions are.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we've negotiated an agreement with Tyranena. They have gone through a BSO process, and their planned development is basically approved at the staff level at this point. The agreement is in front of you, doesn't involve the zoning change or anything like that. The agreement is in front of you because of a TID-A contribution that's contemplated to provide the developer for an opportunity to develop the property out. TID-8 was created to redevelop the blighted district. I know that's an offensive term, but to redevelop the blighted district in downtown. This property was identified as a redevelopment opportunity very, very early on, and the owner and proprietor has brought forth plans to redevelop it into a tasting room, a tap room, and I think there will be food service there as well as outdoor beer garden type environment. So if there are questions, I'm certainly willing to answer the questions that I can. Otherwise, I know that the owner proprietor is in the room if anyone would like to hear from him.
Can I get someone to suspend the rules?
I move to suspend the rules to allow the owner-operator to talk with us if necessary.
Second.
Second, yes.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Mrs. Bishop. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That's a 5-0. The floor is open if you'd like to speak to the council tonight.
I don't think they were planning on it.
Mr. Dressler put them on the spot. About that.
I like your
I got to
sweatshirts.
disclose, I'm definitely friendly with both of these individuals, and I was really looking forward to the opportunity to put them on the spot.
Nice.
Good job.
Thank you.
So I'm Stacy Schraufnagel. I work for Tyranena.
Rob Larson. I also work for Tyranena.
Crap.
Owner proprietor.
Yeah, owner operator.
So how long have you been working on the project?
This particular version,
Let's
multiple years.
just say we started in 2015 to open something up in downtown. So that was about 7 years ago. We're excited to do something in the downtown district, add to its vibrancy, and certainly the grant that we're getting from the state, or the city has gotten from the state, and the funding from the TID district are essential for getting this project through.
We just had a bid estimate meeting today, so, sticker shock.
Prices are going up, right?
They've gone up dramatically just in the last couple of months.
We have a contractor on council here, so he can
Advice is lock in quick because they're going to keep going up.
So on the completion date, how quick are you planning to get into something like this if we give approval tonight?
Based upon a potential March 1 start date, the contractor has given us that they can be done before the end of September.
But we still have a few issues ahead of us, certified survey map and other various things. So we're not quite sure when that's going to come to fruition.
Okay.
Debbie Downer.
Do you have any other statements, or should we open up to some questions here?
Questions, please?
Go ahead, Ms. Curler.
I just wanted to compliment you on the architectural design. We got access to all your plan sheets. It looks like it's going to be really attractive. And I want to thank you for kind of jump-starting the redevelopment in the downtown, because I think this is going to lead to other redevelopment. I think it's going to spur some other activities. So I think it's great to appreciate, Rob, that you're investing in our downtown. I had one question. Curious if you've been able to figure out what to do with the Veterans mural, because I'm assuming that that's not going to be able to stay there with the building addition.
Correct. That will not be remaining. When the building was purchased, there was an agreement with the former owner that if it was not going to be on display, that they had the first right to do something with it. We've not yet had that conversation.
Any other questions for the owners while we have them up here?
Sorry, my thing, it won't load.
So you're enjoying the 100-page
The
document?
100, yes. Well, I was looking for pictures, and because mine has not yet loaded, but, oh, it looks beautiful. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. Any other questions for staff on this issue?
Could we just clarify the how we're going to pay the 2 installments? What, Steve? How could you just clarify that we have $275,000 in 2 installments, and then we would be borrowing later, right? So how do you anticipate that working?
Well, there are multiple ways to do this. First of all, the state of Wisconsin, in one of their few bright moments, realized that economic development would totally stall if you made everything go through the budget cycle. So there are a couple financing options that we can use. We can tie it to the existing bond, seeing as we aren't going to be expending the money out until later. So it wouldn't be a part of this resolution that we have tonight. We are going to do a second bond this year. Later in the year, there is a chance to refinance to save about $400,000 or $500,000. So we've recommended bringing that forward, and so we'd have a chance to add it to that one. Or we can do either a TAN or a BAN, which is tax anticipated note, or a bond anticipated note, and then just save it up until we get those. Or we can just take it out of the unreserved fund balance and wait until we have a chance to borrow at some time where it's more beneficial to us.
Any other questions or comment? All right, I'd just like to summarize that I'm actually very excited about this project. I think it'll do a lot of good things for the city of Lake Mills, the downtown area. It'll help the businesses downtown by bringing more people to the downtown area, including other restaurants. I realize there's some upfront costs, but with the property value increase that this will cause, we'll make our money back real quick from that perspective. So it's a very positive project, and glad to see it. So thank you. Any other comments, questions? Misty, can we have a roll call vote on City Council Motion 22-2-1-4?
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Ms. Quedno?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Good luck with the project, and can't wait to, when did you say completion in October possibly, with our fingers crossed? Oktoberfest, that would be great. All right, well, good luck with the project, and looking forward to it.
Spend a lot of money.
All right, item E, Resolution 22-5. Misty, can you read the resolution?
Resolution 22-5, signature authorization.
Staff comments?
This allows the new finance director, treasurer, to sign checks. Puts her on at the bank. So anything you want to add, Sam?
Banks and every
everything else that goes with it.
So we want the treasurer to be able to sign checks, is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, or other documents, but yeah, it's an important feature of being in that position to be able to sign those things, so.
Okay,
We have 3 in the city that can sign. Myself, Misty, and the finance director, which has been Betsy, but is now going to be Sam.
okay. All right, any questions, comment?
Make a motion.
Oh, we still need a motion?
I'd move to approve resolution 22-5.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Field, second by Ms. Curler. Seeing nobody that wants to talk any further on this comment, let's go right into roll call.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Waters.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Item F, Resolution 22-6. Misty, can you read that?
Resolution 22-6, resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing.
All right, can I have a motion?
I move to adopt Resolution 22-6, declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Ms. Curler. Staff, any comment on this issue?
They like to have, bond requirements like to have money that's expended a certain number of days before the bond is issued to be designated in this fashion. So we have historically done it because we, for the last 30 years, the city has at least waited until the bids for the major construction projects have been completed before we issue bonds. So we're looking at issuing bonds April, May this year. So significantly ahead of last year, but for different reasons. But this allows us to have purchased some things already in January and that type of thing. So something that would have been purchased in March or April, we wouldn't have to worry about. Because we do have 2 bond lettings this year, it may be, it gives us a little bit more flexibility, but in this case, we prefer to do it this way. It's more of a requirement, actually.
All right, any questions? Ms. Curler?
It looks like for the capital budget, the amount of borrowing is matches what we approved in the budget in November. But then there's an additional $508,000 for TID number 5, and I wasn't sure why that needed to be a part of this. And I think TID number 5 only showed a $300,000 expenditure, so I just was wondering if you could clarify why that's added to this.
Actually, I think TIN number 5 had $508,000 in it.
Right.
Betsy and I both checked. And we're doing it just to be careful because we have expended that. That's probably the most money we've expended already this year because a lot of the other capital items are really slow in coming. So the Topol project and the formal project are the ones that have collected their cash already. So we just wanted to make sure that those were calculated in this number. Anything you want to add, Betsy or Sam?
No, and also remember that the items in this list, I was trying to be all-inclusive. We are not obligated to borrow in any means. It's only to satisfy the requirements of the Treasury that we're doing this, as far as the Treasury is requiring that for our bonding. We know that our department heads want to order early, especially items that they're not sure they're going to be receiving until later in the year. So it's to our best interest to do this more as a housekeeping type of item rather than we are under no obligation to borrow based on this list. It's just a list of items that we had in our capital that we anticipated we would be doing. And like Steve said, we like to see what our bids are coming in. so the March time period. He also referenced that we were looking at doing refunding, and those would have been the 2014 bonds for both the utility and the general fund. And that's why we're going to be doing two separate ones, because of the dates that those refundings were going to be allowed. So we're not going to be able to do them both at the same time. So we'll do the refunding of the general obligation with the borrowing for general obligation, and then at another time period, it's the refunding of the utility bond from 2014, and then the borrowing that we might need for the 2022 capital items.
Any questions? All right, seeing no further questions. Misty, can we have roll call for ordinance 1230?
For Resolution 22-6.
Jumping ahead there.
I'm jumping ahead, thank you. Resolution 22-6, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Quedno?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. All right, now we're on ordinance 1230. This is a second reading, so no need for a motion on this. But Misty, can you read the ordinance 1230 in accordance of the second reading tonight?
Thank you.
Ordinance 1230, an ordinance annexing territory to the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, parcel identification number 002-074-1822-007.
All right.
And that's a second reading, so it's by title only.
Second reading by title. Okay, is there any comment or question on this for tonight? All right, seeing none, let's move forward to ordinance 1231. It has the same type of treatment. It is a second reading. Misty, can you take that?
Ordinance number 1231, an ordinance annexing territory to the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, parcel identification numbers 018-0713-1112-003 and 018-0713-1112-004.
All right, any comment on that ordinance for tonight?
Was this one we discussed last time that we were going to try and go to third reading on this evening?
No, we discussed the possibility of moving it up for them, but they didn't need it. And I don't think staff could get to finalizing it anyway, so we've agreed to go to the third reading.
Okay, I just remembered there was some discussion about it.
So in those two past ordinances, the ones we just read here, the third reading will be in our next meeting, so we'll open that up for vote and any further discussion at that point. So that'll be the last reading for both those ordinances in our second meeting of February. All right.
I will comment that we've got all the reports and documents back, so there's no question about the annexation from any aspects.
Okay, thank you. So item I on the agenda is a new ordinance, 1232. Misty, can you read that?
I'm going to read it.
Mr. Drescher.
Yeah, I'm going to read it. Misty's voice is a little hoarse, and this is a little bit longer, so I'll take a crack at it. Ordinance 1232, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance, Section 660.65, home occupation, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin. Whereas there has been a significant increase in people attempting to improve their economic condition by engaging in home occupations and home-based retail for a variety of reasons, including the proliferation of an internet-based marketplace and in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The City Council finds that it is in the public interest to amend Chapter 660 zoning, Section 660-65, home occupations, as set forth hereinafter. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does hereby amend Section 660.65, home occupations, and does ordain as follows. Section 1, City of Lake Mills Ordinance, Section 660.65, home occupations is hereby amended as follows. Home occupations and home-based retail. A, home occupations and home-based retail sales shall be permitted as an accessory use in all residential districts so long as such use is secondary to the principal residential use and is carried on by the residential occupant, subject to the provisions of this section. B, regulations applicable to home occupations and home-based retail sales. 1, if located within the principal structure, such uses shall not occupy more than 25% of the assessed floor area of such structure unless a conditional use is approved by the Plan Commission in accordance with Section 660-195 of this chapter. 2, such use shall not employ in the home more than 3 persons not a resident of the premises. 3, no such use shall be permitted which generates pedestrian or vehicular traffic incompatible with the residential character of the neighborhood. 4, any off-street parking area provided shall be maintained dustless and adequately screened from adjoining residential properties. 5, such use shall not include the conduct of any wholesale business on the premises, nor the removal of sand, gravel, stone, topsoil, or peat moss for commercial purposes. 6, such use shall not include the operation of any machinery, tools, or other appliances, or the outside storage of materials or other operational activity which would create a nuisance or be otherwise incompatible with the surrounding residential area. 7, such use of the premises for home occupations and home-based retail is permitted under this ordinance so long as such use is permitted under and in compliance with all applicable federal, state, county, and local statutes, codes, and ordinances. Section 2, adoption of this ordinance amendment has been sponsored by City Council Representative Catherine Bishop. Section 3, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication as provided by law. That's the extent of the ordinance. I did read even the unamended portions of the existing ordinance at this time. I provided mocked-up versions that identify the exact stricken language and added language, which is underlined in the mocked-up version. And I think the language itself is pretty clear. So I guess that's the first read, and if you have things to discuss, now would be the time.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Bishop, for working on this ordinance, and looking forward to a second and a third reading and further discussion. Any comment tonight? Yeah.
I have a comment, and I guess maybe it's a question, but I was wondering in the existing language for subparagraph 5, if that maybe also needs to be edited, because it sounds like home retail business is prohibited in item 5, but
We did make that edit. There was an error there, and in the version that I just read to you, the retail aspect was stricken.
okay, so maybe I didn't pick up on the change then.
Because we didn't go through a first reading prior to this tonight, the most recent version was attached yesterday, and that has that section B5 or retail completely removed.
Okay, so it just focuses on the wholesale then, and then the retail has been removed. Okay, great, I didn't catch that, I must have read it earlier before it changed. Okay, thank you. And actually, Mrs. Bishop, would you maybe just give us a little bit of background on why this was of interest to you and for bringing it forward?
Sure. So I left a short whereas in the actual document here, but what I think this amendment does is legalizes what people are already doing in their homes here. We have a really creative community, right? And people have hobbies, they're monetizing their interest, and they're largely doing that at home. In part because of COVID and work from home, in part because that's where they are and that's where they have their resources. And so the ordinance, as it currently stands in our code, has that section 5 that you noted that expressly prohibits retail in the home. And my proposed amendment to the ordinance would remove that, allowing in-home retail with largely all of the other restrictions and requirements intact. So I don't believe I've changed too much of that, whereas the amendments moving forward, if it's passed, and I hope it is, would allow people to continue what they're doing in their homes. And I think it would even include things like, Facebook sales, if you're selling something online, that could be home retail. And so I just want to make sure that we have a code that's in line with how people act and what they're doing.
Thank you. And so if, just to make sure that everyone understands the, how this would work, then people that are engaging in those kinds of businesses, they don't need any particular permit or license from the city unless perhaps the thing that they're selling does require some other kind of license. Is that right?
That's correct, and that would be in line with how people were currently conducting home occupations under the current ordinance.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comment? All right, seeing none. I'll move to recommendations for future agendas. I'm not available for that second workshop meeting this month. That's Thursday, the 17th. So I'm fine with the other four representatives, council representatives, talking to the executive search firms, or we can reschedule that to another time. I'm good either way, so. Any comment, thoughts?
Are you able to call into it?
No, I'll be
Maybe out of
at a
pocket
meeting
altogether?
at that time period,
Okay.
actually.
I think it would be best to have everybody there.
Do you have,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask for other proposed dates.
I'm pretty good other than that day, actually.
Of course.
It's that day, and I tried to work around it, and it just didn't work with the other party, so I apologize.
That's okay, I have my babysitter for that day already, so I'll have to, after we leave, figure out when she's available.
So if we want to go, that would be the third Thursday. If we want to go the fourth Thursday, I'm fine with that.
The 24th?
Correct.
Or even the Monday, the 21st?
I would be fine with that as well.
That is President's Day, is city staff here?
Oh, President's Day.
President's Day is on the 20th. Oh,
21st?
yeah, it's on the 21st. The
Our city
24th.
office is closed that day. Is that a holiday?
No.
Are we good with Monday?
I can do either one.
The 24th, just off the cuff, works better for me because my husband is off work and can watch my child, so that's my consideration for that.
And there may be a conflict on the 21st. I don't have it scheduled yet, but we're looking at that as one of the potential dates for the adjourn and continued ZBA hearing.
Okay.
24th works for me. You want it at 5:30?
Sure.
Does that work?
I could do 5:30.
Well, we're interviewing, this is to interview the executive search firms, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't just be like dinner and discussion, it would be a little more formal.
So 2:24. You want to go at 5:30?
Yeah,
Let's do
works
that.
great for me.
All right. Any other agenda items?
So just to be clear, we're not having a meeting on the 17th then?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Moving it to the 24th, okay.
Correct.
I had one item. The Joint Rock Lake Committee minutes talked about removing the use of, it's called PFAS, PFAS. It's a chemical used in fire retardants and firefighting generally, but also in other industries. And that chemical has significant health and environmental impact that is negative. And so I would like to see maybe a discussion item come along the line that would allow us to quit using that chemical and switch to, they had a recommended alternative, but I'm not very familiar with it. So that's something I would like us to consider at one point.
So I have followed up with city staff on that, actually. We do have some PFAS on our property, but it doesn't actually belong to the city of Lake Mills. It belongs to Jefferson County.
Okay.
So that, am I correct in that?
I think that we own it, but Jefferson County is taking the lead on disposing of it, and we haven't bought any, and we've had that 12 gallons, I think, for at least 12 years.
So we don't use any at the fire department for their
Is
equipment?
that part of the hazmat trailer that we have there?
Yep.
Okay, then I,
The hazmat trailer is actually the county's. And so there was some discussion as to whether it was ours or the county's, but I think we do have some in that, but we just are including it with the county, one filing and one disposal.
Well, then it sounds
So
like
we're
it's
working with
taken
the
care of.
county on the PFAS issue then?
Yep.
Okay.
And we haven't bought any in a long time. And
Oh, sorry.
under certain conditions, we might use it yet, but in the future, we would move to a different product.
All right, thank you. Any other topics? Ms. Curler?
I have one. It's, as I'm looking at the calendar, it occurs to me that we have 7 months remaining with our current city manager. And so I think it would be a good idea for us to have a closed session sometime soon to prepare for what we maybe expect from Steve in the last 6 months, and for a discussion with him on what he, his performance in the last 6 months, what he feels that he can complete in that time.
Okay. I actually sent Mr. Dressler a memo on trying to put together what I was calling a triennial review. So it would be more informal in February and in June, where the more formal review takes place in October. So that allows us to touch base with the city manager every 4 months to understand what has happened recently and what's going to happen in the future, and stimulate a conversation with the city council on what's going on within the city. So we were going to follow up on that and try to get something scheduled within the next couple meetings, a closed session. It kind of depends on what our agenda looks like. We have a full agenda coming in the next couple meetings, and we'll have to figure out what works best. But that is something that we're talking and trying to address. So, any other topics? Thank you for bringing that up, by the way.
I'm good.
All right, seeing none, I move to adjourn the meeting of City Council at, is that 10:06 or 9:06?
9:06.
My glasses, I need the 9:06 adjournment, thank you.
Reading glasses.